Sheridan from Rust Belt Basketball Coaches Network and the Basketball Nexus website. Thank you for joining us this evening for State of the Game podcast episode 6. And we are so fortunate tonight to have one of my favorite basketball coaches from Northwest Ohio, Coach Matt Ripke, the head coach of the Edon Bombers. And Coach Ripke's got his Edon Bombers, and I'm remiss without saying that Coach Ripke's in the midst of a massive rebuild, and the job he has done at Edon has just been extraordinary. And he's got his team off to a 6-4 record thus far, a 1-0 record in the Buckeye Border Conference. And we're going to talk tonight with Coach Ripke about his massive upset over Archbold, the Blue Streaks. Coach Ripke is also a valued member of the Northwest Ohio District 7 Basketball Coaches Association, as he is in charge of one of our most important, if not our most important, aspects. Matt is in charge of our Hall of Fame selection, and we've titled that Special Awards. So Matt has a big hat to wear with District 7. For people who don't know, in Northwest Ohio, those of us who are on the District 7 Board of Directors receive no stipend. It's all pro bono. So the amount of work Matt has to do for our Hall of Fame selections, our retired Coach of the Year selections, and all of those things is a massive undertaking. So before we start, Matt, I want to thank you for what you do for District 7.
Appreciate it. It's something I really enjoy doing. Built some great relationships with some veteran coaches through the Coaches Association and being on the executive committee. And as you said, it's work, but it's very rewarding work when it comes to fruition with guys being inducted into the Hall of Fame and receiving the Retired Coaches Award. You can see the appreciation that they have. So take a lot of pride in putting that together.
So Matt, let's get right into it. You play Archbold, which is a team that is extremely difficult to beat. And I don't care what division a basketball team is in, Archbold is Archbold. Archbold never seems to do anything but reload from year to year. It's just a difficult team to beat. For you to pull that upset off 58-55, and was that an overtime game?
Yeah. Yes.
That's a win that you had to feel really good about.
No, absolutely. It's they have a rich tradition of basketball. They're one of the winningest programs in the state of Ohio. As you said, they're a little bit bigger than us. They're Division 5 this year, and we're Division 7. We have about between 42 and 48 kids in a class. So for us to come away with a victory against a program with a tradition like Archbold, it's huge for our program.
I would say so. And you've got your assistant coach on here, Ryan Ripke, who is a longtime high school basketball coach in Northwest Ohio, who just had an unreal amount of success at Delta High School. Ryan built a program that became a staple of the village of Delta. It was just when Ryan's teams played, it wasn't a game, it was an event. The amount of people who came to support the girls basketball players and team at Delta when Ryan was coaching there was just unheard of. Packing the gym for a girls team. It's nothing against girls basketball. It's just typically you don't have that type of support. And Ryan built a program there that was just unbelievable. So we've got two Edon Bombers on here tonight, and we'll go with Matt first, and then I'll let Ryan kick in. Tell us about your preparation for your Archbold win.
I'll tell you what, after the end of the year, we finish up our December with a Route 49 tournament. And we had I guess you could say, a disappointing loss against our rival in the final, lost in overtime. I had a lead and kind of gave it away at the end. Again, credit to them because they made plays, but felt like after that game we were at a crossroads. We could go one of two ways with this season, and we could either bag it and pout and feel sorry for ourselves, or we could get back in the gym and work on getting better. And I thought we had a couple good days of preparation, getting ready for Archbold, knowing going in that it was going to be a challenge. And I kept telling our guys during that week of practice the fact that, we schedule these quality opponents for a reason. We want to be challenged throughout the course of the year. And I think they kind of took it to heart. I made the comment to our other coaches today in practice, Coach Holcomb and Coach Troush, that this is kind of a hard group to read. They don't get real emotional. They don't. They're never really up. They're never really down. But they took it in stride, and we had a couple tough days of practice. Got back to basics and fundamentals on the defensive end, especially. And our guys put the work in preparation to be ready to play against the quality opponent of Archbold coming into town.
So did you play straight man against them?
We did. We mixed in a few possessions of 1-2-2 half court zone, but we primarily played man-to-man defense. We've been a pressure pack line team since I've been here, and we knew with what Archbold wanted to do, and they have a ton of guards that can drive the ball really hard, and they always have good shooters on the perimeter. We wanted to be in that pack line, one pass away, and try and take their driving lanes away as much as possible. And when their guards got in there, just wall up and make them score over the top of us. And I thought we did a tremendous job of shutting off those passing lanes when we were in our man, and also when we were in 1-2-2. The problem with our 1-2-2 was sometimes our big guys got lost. They got some corner threes. We didn't close out quite as quick on them. So, but mixing it up, I think, was huge as well in the fact that sometimes it kept them. I think it kept them off balance as well.
So in your pressure pack line, if a player is one pass away in what we used to call a flat triangle, do you have their spines facing the baseline, or do they have a hand out in the passing lane?
We call it chest to man. In the gap, below the three-point line, a foot and a half below the three-point line, with your chest to your man in that gap, taking that driving lane away, because we feel like that gives us a better opportunity once that pass is made. It's a quicker closeout, not having to turn our body to the shooter.
When the ball's on the wing, do you force the ball a certain way, or do you play them square?
We try to play to force the ball to the baseline and not let it get to the middle. But sometimes we'll change that depending upon what the offensive player's tendency is. If a guy is really dominant one hand and weaker in the other hand, we may force him to his weak hand, but that's a game-to-game, player-to-player type situation. But for the most part, in general, when starting off at the beginning of the year, it's inside leg up the line, keep the ball out of the middle.
So you guys spend a lot of time on working on ball in the air, move, and try to beat the receiver on the catch.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say move, and I've kind of changed our terminology, and it's slide on the fly to the ball, because I think a lot of times when kids hear move, they think that gives me a chance to stand up and get out of my stance. And we want to make sure that we stay in our stance, so we're closing out with a high hand in a stance, and again, taking that driving lane away while at the same time contesting shots.
So are you old school in your pack line where your kids close out with two hands high, thumbs touching, or are you newer school with one hand up and one hand down?
If I can get one hand up, I'm satisfied at this point. That's been a challenge too, and we kind of, as I said, went back to basics after our Route 49, and every closeout had to be with a high hand. So I would love to go back to the two high hands, but again, I'll take one high hand to contest.
To get two hands high, if your focus is on sliding on the flight of the ball.
Yeah. And the other thing too is I think it's difficult to close out with two high hands and then be able to slide and take the drive away as well. So that, again, I've kind of gone away from the two high hands, and as long as we get one up there and be ready to slide and take that driving lane away, I can live with that.
Sure. I've got one more question about your closeouts, and this has been a source of contention since the pack line became a thing. And every coach has a different way of doing it, so there's no right answer or wrong answer. But when your kids close out, do you have them jump back 12 inches or so to take that cushion step to guard the drive, or do you stick to pressure the ball to make it harder for them to pass it?
It depends on the individual we're closing out on. We do that in our scouting report. We'll label opponent players as either a rondo, which being a drive first guy, we want to close out short on him. If we label him as a Kobe, we need to know that we need to close out hard because he can shoot it, but he can also drive it. So that's more of the bounce back on that initial closeout. And then the third is a Ray Allen. If he's a Ray Allen, we're going to get up and make him put it on the floor and force him to dribble the basketball.
Yeah, I love it. It takes a lot of time to come up with those scouting reports, but man, when you can individualize them like that, I know I'm telling you an ice cube's cold, but those are things that can dramatically change the course of a game. For an athlete, few things are worse than having to compete on a slick surface. Well, my friends Tom Rose and Matt Olin have solved this conundrum by creating Grip Spritz. Grip Spritz offers a wide array of shoe-to-court traction products that are not only highly effective, but also affordable, easy to use, and easy to transport. It's no wonder Grip Spritz has become the official traction solution for the Ohio High School Basketball Coaches Association and the National High School Basketball Coaches Association. Take it from me, if the OHSBCA and the NHSBCA are making Grip Spritz their official court cleaning product, Grip Spritz simply has to be the best on the market.
It does take quite a bit of time, and that's again benefit of having great assistant coaches that can put the time in to watch the film as well. And we've developed a system, and I'll tell you what, Coach, I've this year have started using some of the AI tools that are out there in scouting to kind of give maybe that extra edge that saves a little bit of time on some things. You know, we have the huddle and the assist and all those things, but using some AI tools to help break some things down and maybe to emphasize what we've seen on film from an analytical standpoint.
So this is something that I've not heard of, Matt. Tell me about these AI tools. This is a new one to me.
So I've developed some different prompts for instance, ChatGPT. I'll give it a prompt. I've created some different master prompts for our scouting reports. And asking it to be basically an analytic coach and taking the statistics that I give it and our personnel breakdown. I've kind of taught it how to read our personnel breakdown when we identify a player as, you know, a drive right, a catch and shoot, a drive left, a drive right, pull up, drive left, pull up, left shoulder turn, right shoulder turn, all those different individual aspects of a player's game. And it can give, for the most part, it's done a pretty good job from an analytics standpoint of giving us some additional data to supplement our scouting reports.
Well, that's unbelievable. Forgive me for my ignorance, but is this something that is also a massive time saver for you?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. Now, again, being new, I don't know that I trust it 100%. So we still do the things old school and watch all the films and mark everything. But like I said, it gives us that extra analytical set of eyes to look at things and emphasize and reiterate the things that we're trying to figure out and identify with our opponent.
Unreal. So my take is, if you can scout a team and you don't have to adhere to the old school shot charts, we would have different cadences, color certain things with different colored pins as to catch and drive, catch and shoot. That has to be a huge time saver.
It is 1,000%. And with a lot of the statistics that we get with the shot charts from Huddle, those will help to identify those things. Especially, again, it's simple analytics, but I teach social studies, so math is not my strong suit. So anytime I can get somebody else to do my math for me, that's good for everybody around me.
Understood. And you're also the athletic director at Edon, and Edon is a small school who does have football, which does make the athletic director's job a dynamic position. Whenever you have football at a small school, it's a dynamic position. So this could be something, I'm assuming, which I don't do very often, that could deaden the amount of time you have to spend at home watching video.
Yeah, it does take some of that time away, which is nice. Be able to spend that quality time with family in season. That again, for the last 15, 16 years hasn't necessarily been the case, but now that time saver allows not only to be present when I am at home, but also to watch my daughters play. I have two daughters that are seniors that are playing, so I'm fortunate enough to be able to go watch them play as well. So. The time saving thing is huge, and I think it's only going to get better. The use of AI in scouting as it evolves.
So I'm sitting here listening to you. I'm likening this to when I was at big schools and I had a 2-hour coaching conference period time during the day, and I didn't have to do a lot of things in season, as you said, in the evening. So my wife and I had a healthy TV routine or whatever, and then going back to a small school like Maumee, where I didn't have that coaching conference period, that completely train wrecked anything we did in the evening. I mean, I was watching video till 1 a.m. darn near every night. As much film as a coach can watch and all the intelligence you can gain from a scatter report, you're also losing valuable time with your loved ones.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's a sacrifice, that's for sure.
I learned something. That's great. I could talk to a tree and learn something, but that's good stuff. So let me ask you a question, Coach. One of the old Indiana high school mantras was, over Christmas break, your team's either going to get better or get worse. Difference being, in the great state of Ohio, you guys play a lot of games over Christmas break. Do you think that has that same effect, whereas you can spend time over Christmas break as to where we can just say, we're either going to get better and do whatever you can to get better, which is an overstatement of the obvious. But what are your thoughts on that, where you have to have your A game on during Christmas break to compete in games?
Yeah, you better be ready to go, because where we're at, we have as I said, our Route 49 Classic, and the girls play the week before Christmas, the boys play the week after Christmas. And we've tried, because again, in my experience being involved in that, we tried to get at least one game that week that the girls are playing, because again, December, you get in that routine, you want to keep that routine. But it's also nice only playing one game that week to be able to spend a couple days, what we call focusing on us. We're not going to spend those days on game planning so much. We're going to spend those on, again, going back to the fundamentals, going back to doing a lot of 4-on-4 shell, closeout drills, one-on-one full court drills, those types of things that sometimes get lost early in December. And here's the other thing too, you talk about being a small school that has football. Eden is a small school that has successful football. Our football team went to the second round of the playoffs this year, so we had, I think, about 10 practices before our first game with one scrimmage. The time for preparation and all those fundamentals that you want to do in December, they got fast forwarded to, because we got to get ready for games. Fortunate that we had enough veterans coming back that we could do that. But I would agree, again, that Christmas time it can be a tough time. You also want to make sure and give your guys some time off with their families, and for us to be off as coaches with our families as well. But my family's grown accustomed to it. They kind of understand, and my extended family as well. They know that when Christmas time comes around, we're going to have, the girls are going to have their tournament, and boys are going to have our tournament, and we're going to have to schedule our Christmases in between those things, and that's just the way it is.
Yes, both sides of my family always scheduled all of our activities when they knew I was going to be at basketball, so they wouldn't have to deal with me. Yes, so I understand that completely. We used to have a lot of alumni come in when I was in Indiana during that Christmas break when we didn't have games to play against us, and a lot of times we had 2-a-days during that time to keep your kids sharp. And I never really came to a significant conclusion one way or the other, which was better or which was worse. I do think, as you said, having some time to just focus on your team, where you're not talking about anybody else but your team, is a big deal during that time, middle of the year.
Yeah, we definitely take advantage of it. Try and do it throughout especially now that we get into the grind of January, we get a chance of where we may only have one game. We might do that again. Our league, first 3 weeks, the boys play on Thursday, girls on Fridays, which I actually like that Thursday, Saturday, as opposed to Friday, Saturday from a coaching standpoint, from an AD, not so much from a revenue standpoint, but it is what it is. It's nice when we get to those Friday games, and that's the only game we have all week, league games, so we can spend a little more time in practice, or take one of those practices and focus solely on us, and getting back to fundamentals, and making sure that we're doing things the right way and stressing those things.
You also had another really good win, 58-57 versus Antwerp, and that's another tough team to beat. Brad Morrison and Danny's Cafe, located in beautiful Rossford, Ohio. Danny's Cafe is the ultimate spot for a family-friendly breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or a night out with friends to watch your favorite high school, college, or pro team. Danny's Cafe offers an incredible food experience for people with varying types of palates, and the service is fast and provided by the most hospitable staff in Northwest Ohio. The next time you're on the hunt for a place to grab a bite or cheer on your favorite team, head to Danny's Cafe located directly across the street from Rossford High School.
They're, again, very well coached. Coach Billman does a tremendous job with the Archers, and that was our opening game in the Route 49. And the good thing about them is there's certainly some familiarity with what they do and what they've tried to do the last few years. Personnel-wise, they still have some tremendous players that we knew we were going to have to do a good job of guarding, and I think we did a pretty good job of keeping their top scorer from going off and making those secondary guys try and score the basketball a little bit more. And we did a decent job scoring the ball ourselves. And I think that's probably the one thing with this group compared to the last four that I've had here. There have been years that we've been concerned about, are we going to be able to get to 40 points? This year, it's, knock on wood, haven't had trouble getting to that 40 plus threshold. But the problem is, can we guard people and hold them to be able to come away with wins? So, but yeah, Antwerp, again, very well coached, a good tradition, especially the last 5-6 years. They've been an absolute powerhouse. And for us to come away with a 1-point win in that one was huge.
Yes, and it's interesting you say that. The old, and I'm going way back to the original Dick Bennett Packline, and I was coaching in Northwest Indiana at that period of time, and the Packline took off like wildfire after Dick Bennett had spoke at a coach's clinic in Angola, Indiana, and the mantra used to be, they might make 11 threes, which is 33 points. Now we got to find a way to score 34. And I think that's changed dramatically with Packline, just because there's so many different variations of the Packline now that you see people play.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt.
Well, Coach, this has been great. I appreciate you joining us. If you got anything else you want to tell us about the Edon Bombers, by gosh, we're all ears.
I was going to say, talk about your seniors. Obviously, you got one stud, but talk about all three of them and the importance that they are to the team, but also just the program as a whole.
Yeah, so I'll start with Grant Reed. Grant is a post player. He is a tremendous hard worker and big body. He was a defensive lineman, offensive lineman in football. Fits in great with our mover blocker offense. Just loves to make contact with people in those screening actions. Not a tremendous scorer, but a great team player who has worked his tail off to contribute in a lot of the things that you don't see in the stat line. Doesn't get a ton of rebounds, doesn't have a ton of points, assists, but man, he sets guys up with great screening action to give them the opportunity to score the ball. Kendall Briggle came back to it, and Grant, too, didn't play last year. Kendall Briggle didn't play last year, came back, played this year as a senior, and has been a tremendous lift for us with his length and athleticism, and is starting to, again, a kid that didn't play for a year, he's starting to shoot the basketball very well. Which is huge. And those two guys are so unselfish that sometimes I have to tell them, and the opportunity presents, you got to take some shots. It may not be an absolute uncontested layup. You're going to have to score the ball a little bit for us as well. And Kendall usually draws that assignment of guarding the opponent's best player 1 through 4. And he's done a tremendous job for us. Certainly quiet leaders. Our third senior is Briggs Gallahue, who Saturday night surpassed 1,000 points in his career. First player that I've coached for 4 years in my 17 years as a head coach that eclipsed the 1,000-point mark. Again, tremendous worker, one of the best all-around players that I've coached because, again, his size, he's about 6'4", has the ability to go in the post and beat smaller defenders up, but he can also step outside and handle it and shoot the ball as well. So, but those three guys, they set the tone for us both every day in practice and in games. I talked about the overtime the overtime loss in the Route 49, and we kind of got to the same situation on Saturday in Archbold. We had a lead, we were up about 6 with 2 minutes to go and kind of piddled it away and took a timeout, and guys came over to the bench and one of the younger guys said, here we go again. Like, we're not going to do this like we did. I said to him, and you could look Briggs in the eye, and this is not Tuesday. This is Archbold. This is something totally different. And those guys did a really good job, I think, in that overtime of focusing our team forward and, again, finding a way to win. Yeah, tremendous group of seniors that do a great job because our guards are all young guys. So we've got a junior point guard and a sophomore playing a guard and another junior that plays some guard for us. So to have seniors that trust those guys enough to know that they're going to make mistakes, but they don't get on them to deflate them. They do their best to get them to understand that we need you to, again, be a varsity player now. It's time to quit making those silly mistakes and step up and grow. And now that we've got to January, I think for the most part, those younger guys have started to take that step forward, and sure, as a result of our senior leadership.
It's interesting you said you were talking about unselfishness versus selfishness. We were just so blessed on December 31st to have Johnny Tower on our last podcast, who is one of the hottest names in NCAA Division I basketball. He's the head coach of the University of St. Thomas Commies out of St. Paul, Minnesota. For people who might not be familiar, Coach Tower's team took the jump from Division III directly to Division I, and they've won like gangbusters at the Division I level in the Summit League, which is just a great conference. One of the things he talked about was having to talk to some of his players about, you not shooting the ball, you're being selfish. You need to take that shot, because if you don't, you're hurting us. You're hurting the team. You need to take these shots. You're capable of making them. You need to take the shot. And he said that was one of the things they did in the transition from Division III to Division I, was encouraging kids. This is after a lot of work developing their games. You've got to take the shot, because there's nothing to say that we might not get that next ball reversal. And your shot could be the best pass for one of our offensive rebounders.
And that's another thing that our big guys have done a pretty good job of, is rebounding on the offensive end. And we talk, again, within the mover blocker of getting ball reversals. We don't track them per se, but a lot of times our reminders from the bench are get to the third side. I think guys are starting to understand, we get to the third side, we need to, again, it's a good shot, take that shot, but it also gives us a great opportunity to offensive rebound as well.
No, offensive rebounds are like an extra Christmas. It's one of the most underrated things that's taught in high school basketball, in my humble opinion. Teams who do a great job of hitting the offensive glass and not only converting immediately off the offensive rebound, but just putting the ball back in play. It's, again, in my humble estimation, one of the most under-taught aspects of high school basketball.
When you say that, putting it back in play, I think that's the other thing too. When we get into the late game situations, when we're up a couple scores, we've reversed the ball 3 or 4 times. Those guys are getting tired of running through screens and take a shot and then get the offensive rebound, kick it back out, and we're going to run our offense again, get to the third side again. Sometimes it has the ability to completely demoralize the offense, because, here we go, I got to run through all these screens again. They're going to take another shot again. And if I don't check out, they're going to get another rebound again. So it's something that has become an advantage for us that we certainly take pride in.
Absolutely. And the other thing, and I know I'm telling you an ice cube's cold, when your team gets the offensive rebound and they throw it back out, now you're forcing the opposition to guard in a broken defense, long closeouts, what have you.
Right. It's almost like another opportunity in transition, which, as we know, transition defense is one of the hardest things to teach and hardest things to execute. So absolutely.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us. You're welcome to stay on. I understand that you're right in the heart of things here. And if you want to kick off, by God, that's fine. It's completely up to you.
Appreciate it. Hey, you know what? I'm going to hang around. I get a chance to talk hoops and listen to hoops, so I'm going to hang with you.
Very good. The next thing we talk about is, who are we watching? And we're going to start with Ryan. And I know you guys are in season. I'm retired. I still do teach, but so I get to watch a lot of college basketball and high school basketball now. I do have a side job where I do color analyst for BCSN, Buckeye Cable Sports Network. So I get to see a lot of high school basketball. So I have a list of teams who I've been watching in both college and high school. But we'll start with Ryan. Who are you watching? I don't care what level. I don't care if it's girls, boys, whatever. But who are you watching and why?
Made an initial list, and then I kind of added to it. You told me 5 teams, and I'm like going, man, I'm not quite sure I can limit it to 5 teams, but
don't limit it. If you're looking for an easy and affordable way to purchase all of your sporting good needs, look no further than Game One, located in Swanton, Ohio. I've worked with LJ Archambault for 20 years. and I have never worked with a more honest, punctual, and detail-oriented sporting goods salesman. I coached for nearly 3 decades and in 2 different states, and have never worked with a better organization than Game One, and more importantly, a better person than LJR Shambo. It's always game on at Game One.
Okay. Couple of the top teams, obviously out west of you, everybody's watching Delphus St. John's.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys I have not seen them play. My boys have seen them play the past couple of years when they've played Pettisville. The senior, Cameron, I think his name is, he can fill it. He just knows how to score. And so obviously everybody around here is watching them. It's kind of funny. The other night we were talking as a staff, and Coach Trouse brought up the fact that Delphus St. John's tweeted out that they had the best game in the state against Maumee Valley, who Maumee Valley is a heck of a team, and Delphus St. John's ended up hitting 22 threes and doubling them up like 94-49 or something like that. But
yeah, Delphus St. John's is like watching a church league team full of 38, 39, 40-year-olds who have played basketball together their entire lives. They were all on the same high school team. The way they pass the ball, the way they screen in on the weak side and get the ball humming, and they just seem to know where everybody's going to be at every single aspect of whether it's defense or offense. It's like if I went back home and I got my old teammates together and we went and played. Now, it would have to be half court because I don't want to die just yet of cardiac arrest. It's just so aesthetically pleasing watching a high school team play as if they're all one entity. It's crazy how they are so unified.
So obviously Maumee Valley, I haven't seen them play. Derek, I'm guessing maybe you have. But then also, obviously, Patrick Henry is a real nice team. Sounds like the 2 Krieger brothers are out for a while. In fact, I was just watching them on film, Coach Ripke, as getting ready for one of our games this weekend. And they're definitely not the same team without the Krieger boys. But the Heber kid is still the Heber kid. He really makes them go and opens up a lot of things for some of those other players. Sticking with the NWOAL, I think Evergreen's a team that is really dangerous as well. They play really fast. They score a lot of points. It's funny because I just got a text from their head coach. He was talking about, his desire for them to play a little bit more defense. They do play fast, that's for sure. And then this is probably another team that Coach Sheridan probably seen, I'm guessing, and that's Otsego. I know earlier in the season, Evergreen lost Otsego, I think in overtime, 96-90. And I think that was a game that at the end of regulation was 80-80. So I don't know, Coach Ripke, I don't know if you can fathom this day and age of scoring 80 points in a game, but both teams were able to do that. I don't know if you really want to talk about it a whole lot, Matt, but that Paulding team seemed like they're going to be they are a dangerous team. Their athleticism and their length, that was one of those games, and I don't know how you felt. Well, I know how you felt watching it, but I don't know how you felt about the Roanhouse kid. But, he's the conference player of the year, the reigning conference player of the year, and he was kind of like a third or fourth fiddle to some of those kids the other night.
The first thing going through the line after the game, I shook his hand, looked him right in the eye, and said, "I'm so glad you're a senior that I don't have to see you again." Because again, he may have been quiet on the stat sheet, but he leads that team. He makes them go. He makes a lot of things happen for them, and they are athletic as all get out. You talked about 80 points. We were on pace to give up 84 in that game at halftime, and found a way to get a few stops in the second half to hold them under that.
Yeah. And then I just think on an individual basis, there's a couple of BBC teams that obviously Coach Ripke and I are watching pretty closely. But, Montpelier has a phenomenal sophomore in CJ Fiddler, just a kid that came in last year as a freshman and just really took things by storm and just has really not slowed up a whole lot. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got Pettisville with Jack Leppelmeyer, who's just a phenomenal basketball player. I mean, he'll score anywhere from 50% to 80% of his team's points. And the crazy thing is when you hear a stat like that, okay, kid scores 80% of his team points, you're like, oh, they probably got throttled. No, they don't. They win. He just has one of his good buddies is my son, Quinn. And Quinn just says, Dad, he just wills the ball in the basket. Like he just has a way of scoring, and just figuring it out. And so he's a tremendous athlete altogether. He could probably, I mean, he was a phenomenal cross country runner, phenomenal golfer. I swear he could have stepped on the soccer field this year after really never playing organized soccer and probably been our leading scorer. Obviously, should be an all-state basketball player. And then one of the things that I'm personally tickled about is that last summer he decided to come out and play Acme baseball. And he came out, and I don't know if it was him or Quinn, but one of those two boys were their leading hitters last summer. From a personal level, I'm excited because he came out and played baseball, and after not having played since 8th grade, he's hitting gappers, that he's getting doubles, and so he's just a phenomenal athlete altogether. So that's just kind of some of the teams and some of the individuals that I've been kind of paying attention to.
Matt, you're a head coach, man. You're Swamp. Is there anybody who you've been watching, no matter what level, who's caught your eye?
I think the one that Ryan didn't mention from the NWL is Liberty Center. I've seen them on tape a couple times, and man, they play the right way. The young Baden Hop kid he's a pretty good all around player for as young as he is. So that would be the one. And then of course all the teams that he mentioned. Just fortunate that we get the opportunity and coaches in that share as much film as we do to be able to watch so many different teams. But for me, it's been mostly our opponents or teams that have played our upcoming opponents to be able to watch them on tape.
When I coached, that was one of the things that I enjoyed more than anything else, especially when I went out to Delta and we were playing some teams who I wasn't familiar with. And not only just playing, but getting scouting film from teams who I wasn't familiar with and learning from them. And I had a great experience out there, not just coaching, getting to know some of the other teams in Northwest Ohio and watching them play. And the further west you go in Ohio, it seems the better the basketball gets. You've got Defiance, Shawnee, and that's in the Northern Lakes League is always going to be the Northern Lakes League. And I know they've gone to 2 tiers, and all the teams in the NLL are great teams. They've all got tradition, whatever. But I got to see a lot of teams out that direction that I wasn't familiar with, and had a great experience being able to watch them.
I remember one time a few years ago, it was when I was still coaching girls at Delta, and we were playing at Wauseon, and Chad Burt's team, they were finishing up practicing. And so after practice, he and I stood and talked around, and he brought up the WBL. He always talked about how not anything going against having a district going east, but he said, man, when you go south and you start facing those WBL teams, he goes, it's just a different brand of basketball. And you always knew that no matter how good of a Wauseon team he had, or I should say he knew, if he was going to play a WBL team, especially in tournament, he was going to have to get his teams prepared, and his kids were going to have to be prepared to play a different brand of basketball. That's one of those things where in the BBC, we kind of look at the NWL, and we kind of see that as kind of a different brand of basketball. And then, to go even a step further with the WBL is a huge jump. And a team like Ottawa Glandorf, they're right back where they used to be. Kind of took a year off, which was odd for everybody in our area to look at OG and kind of wonder what's going on. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong there. It's just they're back winning.
Yeah, they were young last year. My college roommate is an OG boy. He moved back to Northwest Ohio last winter. We went to a lot of OG games together, and it was just a fact they were young and inexperienced. How many close games did they have last year? My gosh, it was crazy. And now they're experienced. These guys have learned how to close games, and that's a huge ordeal, and they're going to be good for the foreseeable future. When I was at Maumee, we tried to pick up as many WBL teams as we could. And for preparation, I would tell our kids, I wanted to play the WBL teams on the road. And we would tell our kids, this is going to be like us going in the pool lane. It's going to be a big gym. It's going to be slammed. They're going to know what the heck they're doing. They're going to take away, but we were also blocker mover. They're going to take away our first 2 hits. So we're going to have to rely on options 3 and 4. No one ever accused us of playing at a fast pace, but we knew that we were going to have at least 10 to 12 ball reversals per possession for us to crack that egg against any WBL team. They were just that good defensively. And Matt said conversion defense. you better be able to get your tail ends back and get your defense set and play them 5 versus 5 for a majority of the game, because every WBL team is so good in conversion offense. They get a defensive rebound and they are gone. We likened it to Dave Boyce's Perrysburg teams, where the defensive rebound for Dave Boyce's Perrysburg teams was the outlet to their fast break. If you're not getting back and making the game 5-on-5, and Matt referenced this earlier, you're staring down the barrel of giving up 90 points in a high school basketball game. So we always felt like it was crucial for us to get as many of those WBL teams on the schedule as possible. We never did play OG, Defiance, and Elida.
If you want to help us grow, if you enjoy our content, please like, share, subscribe, and leave us comments on our social media postings. That helps us grow our small coaches network more than you could ever know. Thank you so much.
Back when Denny Thompson was at Elida, my gosh, guarding, because Denny Thompson's boys played at Washington U in St. Louis, and they ran what's now called the Bellarmine offense. Unless you've got 2 weeks to prepare for them, you're not going to be able to prepare for everything that's integrated into that offense. It's like Matt said, and Ryan has referenced, keeping everybody, whether it's on the ball or off the ball, in front of you and not getting face cut. And when someone dribbles the ball towards the person you're guarding, you best be ready to get backdoored. So it was a lot of fun preparing for those guys. The WBL is always going to be the WBL. NIL, whatever you want to throw at them, the WBL is always going to be the WBL. The WBL is the only league that I know of in Ohio who said, okay, everybody else wants to go to Tuesday, Friday, or Thursday, Saturday. Nope. Boys play Friday and Saturday. And I think that speaks volumes. I think it speaks volumes not only for the coaches, but also for their administration. Because Matt, I used to be an AD as well. And if you're not bringing in enough money from your basketball team to cover the cost of football, you're in a big predicament as an AD. And I think we all know that Tuesday games are tough for families to get to by attrition. Keeping your schedule Friday and Saturday for boys, I think, is huge.
The other thing on those Tuesday, Thursday games, you also have junior high that you're competing with, especially the smaller schools.
Yep.
So that takes away from your attendance with those, not only those kids, but also their families as well attending those games.
Right. And as an AD, I never wanted my boys playing the same night the girls played, because you're talking about not only just the girls basketball team coming to our games, but also their parents and grandparents. And that's a large number of people. And if you're at a school like Delta, I wasn't a big fan of us playing the same night there was a wrestling tournament.
Yeah, I always hated it because there were times where the AD that you and I worked for, Derek, he did his best to not to, but with makeup games and all that kind of stuff, there were some nights where you didn't have any choice. That was always frustrating because, like you said, we used to get a lot of people, and I think they still do get a lot of people coming to their games. And so then you had fewer people, and it's just not the same atmosphere. So,
well, Drew Hange saw the big picture of things, and that was the great separator for him. Drew understood that the cash cow is home games, and he was dynamic about scheduling. That was the thing. There were a lot of things I loved about Drew. I loved his communication with his coaches. I loved his support. I loved the fact that Drew was hands-on with parents. I loved the fact that Drew wasn't going to sit with parents during a game. He sat by himself, unless Corey, our athletic trainer, sat with him. But Drew was all about the coaches and the players. And I know in modern America, people get kind of cross-eyed when we correlate those two groups together, the coaches and the players. Drew was so good about understanding that there is no team without the coaches. He was so pro-coach. It was refreshing. As an administrator, once you're solely relying on external people, hence parents, as your support core, they will turn on you at the flip of the coin as soon as they don't get what they want. But when you're a pro coach, one of the first things a student athlete picks up on is this AD isn't going to listen to every bellyache I have. And the parents follow suit. Well, this guy's not going to cater to me. They're going to support the people they hired, which is the way it should be. And that's one of the biggest issues now that I see in high school athletics is people are being hired to coach a team because of their relationship with the AD. And I'm not talking about a professional relationship. I'm talking about a friend, an external relationship. And those never work. They don't work. They're short-term propositions. Ultimately, the people who get hurt in those propositions are the student athletes. You guys know as well as anybody, we are a dime a dozen. We could be replaced tomorrow. That's just the way it is. I don't care what state you're in. You've got to have kids playing the game. And when the kids who are playing the game understand that the athletic director is pro coach, that's something that money can't buy.
So, Derek, who are some of the boys teams you're watching?
I'll start off with girls. I love watching Ball State and IU girls. I love how they move the basketball. And, excuse me, I absolutely love Ball State's full court, man-to-man run and jump press. Can't get enough of it. I think that it's basketball in its purest form. I love how the Ball State girls have the old school run and jump where the off-ball defender doesn't run and trap the ball. They run, collect two people on the ball, and then the initial defensive player on the ball peel switches and jumps into the passing lane, like the old Dan Peters run and jump. And they do it to absolute perfection. So I can't get enough of that. I love how free-flowing the IU girls play offensively. They're really good defensively, but I love watching them play offense. They move the ball at a breakneck pace, and as soon as one of those young ladies penetrates the old Packline and collects two defensive players on them, they jump stop, play off 2 feet, reverse their pivot, and man, they rocket the ball to whoever's peeling behind them. And I can't get enough of that. I love it. In regards to boys, high school level, and I'm extremely biased, I will be the first to admit it. I've been at Huntington North a lot this year. I love watching Eric Thomas. I love watching his teams at Huntington North execute. Eric and I learned blocker mover. Eric and I have been friends for over 30 years, our family, our wives, and we learned blocker mover together. And I love how he has changed his blocker mover over the years. And I love how they snap the ball and the timing of their screening, especially their flares. I love how they screen when the ball's in the air on their flaring actions. I love how Eric has introduced low post action into his blocker mover. We both ran lane, and we ran triangle a lot. Eric's kind of gotten away from the triangle, but he has a team right now that's just perfect for lane. So I've really enjoyed watching them. And another team who I am ultimately biased is my alma mater, Eastern Greentown High School. We hired Brad Lindsay to take that team over 4 years ago, and Brad's already got 1 foot in the Hall of Fame. The main source of my biasness is my sister's boys, the point guard on that team, is a freshman. And to start as a freshman in that program is it just doesn't happen. Rick Stout graduated in 1978. And to my knowledge, Rick was the last freshman who started. And Rick went on to play at Southeastern Louisiana and had a stellar career there. Scotty Mugg, who played at Indiana State, I don't think Scotty started as a freshman. I think Scotty was sophomore through senior. Could be wrong. I don't think I am. So Reed, my nephew, is having a great season, and they're running a kind of a hybrid offense where there are some screens off the ball, but they're just spreading people out. It's kind of like a hybrid 4-corner with some off-ball screening, and it's fun to watch. And they sit down, they play 1-1-3 zone defense, and reads the B guard or the tail guard of the top two tandem, and they just bust their cans in that 1-1-3. I've really enjoyed watching them. It's been great to watch that program compete. They've had they had a few years where it was kind of a black hole, different coach every year, which is not us. And Brad's brought stability to the program. And the thing I love about Brad more than anything is, like my high school coach was like, is he doesn't just keep everybody, man. You got to be able to fit that culture. He's built a culture there. And I know culture is a term that's been beat to death over the last decade. And I'm not a culture guy. Never have been. I never will be. My version of culture is 180 degrees away from what modern culture now is. But he's brought that hard hat mentality back to Eastern Greentown, where those kids' parents are all factory workers, and they are tough-nosed SOBs, and he's brought that back. And so I've thoroughly enjoyed that. I've really enjoyed watching Central Catholic this year. Mike Floyd lost his two best players to the quote-unquote high school transfer portal. And I think he's got his best Central Catholic team since he's been at Central. Those kids flat out sit and guard. They're physically strong, as you would think of a state championship caliber football team. They sit and guard. They share the ball. They can shoot it this year, which is something that they've struggled with in the past. And they are extremely fun to watch. But I say this, I think you have to be a basketball purist to appreciate what Mike Floyd's done with the Central kids this year. They play at their pace, but man, they make it really hard on the opposition to score, and they rebound like mad. As an ex-blocker mover coach, watching them, it makes me think, how would we offense against these guys? Because they just flat blow up screens. They're that strong. You know, these kids just blow the heck up out of screens. The way they rebound is second to none. Ottawa Glandorf, as you guys have both aforementioned, they're back to, as you guys both said, they're absolute nightmare in the half court. I was able to go record a practice for Rust Belt Basketball Nexus website and put that up. And and this was early in the season, and their practice habits are great. I mean, Tyson runs a great practice. So anybody watching this, if you want to see a great basketball practice where the expectations are set and the assistant coaches, this is the thing, the assistant coaches at OG talk 500,000 times more than Tyson does. And the assistant coaches have been empowered to go get a kid and yank them off the floor and give them the what for, and then put them back into practice. But the expectations they have for their practices are what they, in my opinion, should be. They just flat do it the right way. I love watching Defiance. I love how Bryn has adopted Kirk's system and grown it. I love watching them play. Their conversion offense is as good as anybody I've seen all year. Half court wise, they'll just screen you to death. They will just flat out screen you to death. And they don't have a lot of size, but my God, can they shoot it. And I love the freedom Bryn's given these kids, as Kirk did, to, man, you come off a screen and you get a 1-2, I'm talking about your feet, 1-2 shot repetition down, and they're going to let it fly. And man, you better be able to get around a screen and get a hand up. If not, you're looking at a team of Defiance who, as a team, can make 13 to 14 3-point shots a game at a minimum. At the university level, Iowa is high on my list. I love watching Iowa. I think Their point guard, Sturts, is the way I liken Sturts is if Steve Alford could dribble the basketball effectively, and I'm a huge Bob Knight guy, so I hope anyone doesn't take this wrong. Coach Knight wanted the ball passed before Alford shot it. He didn't want Steve bringing the ball down and chucking it. Well, Sturts with Ben McCollum, man, he brings the ball down the court and he's got a sloppy closeout or a sloppy on-ball defensive player. He's going to pull up for NBA range and he's going to make 40% of them. And then the way they offensive rebounded Iowa is insane. Insane. I love watching them. I still love watching Bellarmine. And people look at me like I've got a nose growing out of my forehead when I say this recently. Bellarmine's not having the same success they had pre-COVID, but they're running the same things with Coach Davenport's son. And I love how they get the ball moving on the perimeter. I love the back screening action they have at Bellarmine. They just back screen the heck out of people. And I love how the person who back screens always gets the next screen. And it's organic. It's nothing patterned. It's pure motion. Have ESPN Plus mainly for them. I love watching Marty Simmons, and you guys are a lot younger than I am, but Marty Simmons was a great player at IU and then transferred to Evansville when Coach Cruz left Bob Knight's staff to be the head coach at Evansville. And Marty's the head coach at Eastern U now, Eastern Illinois. And I love watching how Marty has stayed with that Bob Knight / Jim Cruz offense where there's just a multitude of screening off the ball. And I love how they convert to defense and sit down and they make the game the entire 40 minutes, I meant to say, 5-on-5. Their conversion defense is so Bob Knight-esque. St. Norbert, I know that's not a common name. Gary Gresh, Grzesk, was Dick Bennett's point guard in '92 at University of Wisconsin-Green Bay when they upset Cal in the University of California in the second round of the NCAA tournament. And Gary's teams at St. Norbert have that. They still play that old school Dick Bennett, grind it out on offense, and just flat out sit down and guard. But Gary's teams aren't Packline. They're the old UWGB or University of Stevens Point pressure man-to-man that Coach Bennett played. And he's got an old VHS tape called Dick Bennett's pressure defensive system. They force the ball. If you catch the ball on the wing, they are guarding your top shoulder and they're funneling you deep baseline. And their rotations are just unreal. It's not the modern lockdown left. It is the old school. Ball goes to the wing, man. We're jumping out on your top hip and we're forcing you baseline. And they take away reversals. So Gary shares his films with me. I love watching them. Another high school team I've really gotten into is Jeremy McDonald's Sylvania Northview team. And I'm not going to say that Northview is the same as Delphos St. John's. That would be an absurd statement. But what Jeremy has is a bunch of average athletes whose parents were all good basketball players. And it's, again, we go back to, this is like watching a bunch of 40-year-olds playing in church league on Sunday evenings. They just know where everybody's going to be, and they play so hard. My gosh, they are just breakneck. They play so hard. I love watching his team. I really, really love, and this is our T-shirt of the week. Nazareth University out of New York, Kevin Broderick's team. Kevin just sent me this T-shirt, and it's crazy. I mean, it's insane. Yeah, they're D3. I never got wrapped up in divisions when I coached, ever. I never got wrapped up in what division. I never got wrapped up if they were NAIA, NCAA. That never even factored into my mind. You can either play or you can't. And Kevin Broderick's teams, and this is the thing that I have a hard time, and this is just modern day America, for a lack of a better way of saying it. If this would have been in the 80s or 90s, mid 90s, every high school basketball coach who plays the way that Matt and Ryan played, and I'd like to think the way my teams played, would be all over Kevin Broderick. They play fast, but they only turn the thing over 6.8 times a game. So they've led the nation for the last 3 years in fewest turnovers per game. So when we had, Kevin's got 2 clinics on our Basketball Nexus website, when we had him on, when I saw that statistic, when I was watching a program on the internet about Division III basketball, I had to get this guy on. Well, I assumed that they were going to be walk the thing up the floor, reversal. You know, again, they got a shot clock, but be very stingy with the ball. They're not that at all. Man, they go. They play. Now, the thing about them is their conversion offense, if you have a player who doesn't turn, you're going to get back screened on the half court line, and you're going to get a massive migraine. The amount of back screens they set in their conversion offense is crazy. But man, they go, they play. And once you get them in a half court, they spread the thing. And he doesn't like the term dribble drive. It's not dribble drive, but they find that one person who can't guard the ball, and he just goes to town. So he does a great job of picking on people, for lack of a better term, and they win like gangbusters at Nazareth. The other team that I've really gotten into, and I can watch sometimes on some of the pirated links I get on the internet to get small college basketball for free, is Penn State Barron, Dave Nyland, the sneaky, he's a ninja. This guy's won almost 600 games at the Division III level, and no one around here's heard of him. Now, Dave Nyland's Penn State Barron team went to Buffalo from the MAC over Christmas break and damn near beat them. But now that's a team where Dave Nyland's team is going to run 4 out, 1 in, or the spread version of blocker mover, Ryan, what I ran at Delta. And they are going to reverse it until they get a slip, whether it's off a flare screen or whatever, or Dave is another master of picking on people. They get that one cat who will not guard in the post, and they find a way to back screen somebody into the block, and then they spread out and let this guy go to town. And it's beautiful to watch. If only if you're a basketball purist. If you're someone who wants to watch 90 to 89 games, this isn't for you. But if you want to watch a team, in Penn State Barron's an engineering school, so he's coaching kids who are going to go on and be engineers. So he's not getting the cream of the crop, even in Division III. But what he's getting are kids who follow instructions and follow a game plan, and they're so sound fundamentally. I can't remember the statistic of how many games they played without a traveling violation. Because, you know, at Division III, it's like NAIA. The officials will call traveling. You know, they will. You know, big time Division I, that's gone. You can take 10 steps and you can run with the ball like a fullback, and no one's going to call it. But I love watching his teams play. My God, it's just beautiful. It's aesthetically pleasing if you're a basketball purist. I love watching St. Thomas, the Tommies, play. We had Coach Tower on December 31st on a podcast, and his version of offense and his version of defense are so wildly different than what I was accustomed to. And it was fascinating listening to him talk about how he teaches his kids to play offense and defense. It's just a complete shot in the dark. I mean, for me, but I love watching them, and I can get them on ESPN Plus or Fox Sports every now and then. But they're dropping 80, 90 a game and turning the thing over 10 times. But the way that he scouts and his staff scouts, and for example, when they beat University of Northern Colorado, this is during the transfer portal time. So, UNC has got kids who have played everywhere. They had a kid who played at Kansas, blah, blah, blah. But the way that they backscreen people onto the block or backscreen people into the high short corner and then clear out and let them go. So people who haven't seen Nolan Maselli, this guy on these ISOs, his finishes around the basket are Larry Bird-esque. He's a 6'6" kid from St. Paul, Minneapolis, and this kid can just flat play. And watching how Coach Tower puts this kid in scenarios to go one-on-one is second to none. And then how they screen into the defense when Minicelli has the ball. So if he does get cut off, he fires this thing out. And, they're shooting 13, 14, 15 three-point shots a half. So they're St. Paul is so fun to watch. St. Paul, Florida, the international school in Florida that's NAIA. Zach Moss, the coach there, he's got his kids running motion full court. So as soon as they get the rebound, they're already screaming. And it's fascinating to watch. I love watching them. And then the last one is, and I know Ryan will be, and maybe Matt, maybe both of you are familiar with it, Caston High School in Cass County, Indiana. So they have 241 kids in grades 9 through 12. And in their county tournament over Christmas break on December 21st, they beat Lewis Cass in the first game. And Lewis Cass, when I grew up, was in our conference. And it's the size of Wauseon, give or take a couple kids. Well, they beat Cass. And that's a huge one. Lewis Cass is a state championship basketball program. And in the evening that night, they had to play Logansport. And Logansport has 1,500 kids, 9 through 12. And Caston beat them on a last second, less than 2 seconds to go in the game. Caston had the ball baseline out of bounds, and they ran the most beautiful misdirection baseline out of bounds play you will ever see. And they scored at the buzzer on a lay-in, and they upset Logansport. And so we had Coach Carl Davis on the same day I had Johnny Tower on, the 31st. We had him on at 1 on the state of the game. And listening to him talk about their preparation for competing against Logansport in a 45-minute walkthrough, because they already played that morning, was just music to my ears. They took everything away from Logansport that Logansport does. And, Logansport Ryan's a North Central Conference team. And Matt, that's that's always ranked one of the top basketball conferences in the nation, the NCC. You're talking about Lafayette, Jefferson, Kokomo, Richmond, Logansport, et cetera, et cetera. And so for Caston to beat them was Hoosier-esque. The move, going back to the movie. And so watching them play, and their blocker mover, Matt, so lane, and they are just unrelenting. Now, the thing about Caston that's different, besides the reversals and all of those things that we could talk about, is the Caston kids pick the ball up at 3/4 court and pressure the heck out of the point guard, and the people who are one pass away are up the line. And I mean, they play old school up the line, on the line, and just flat out get after people. They 5-man free switch. They don't worry about mismatches because they go back to the golden rule of defense. Ball pressure. If you pressure the ball like a mad rabid dog, that takes away a lot of things. And you factor in now that most point guards are used to going against Packline, where they can bring the ball up unharassed and throw the ball to the wing. And of course, you know, if you're a great shooter, you're going to get harassed. But when all 5 people are getting guarded like crazy, I mean, up in them hard, forcing baseline, a lot of kids aren't used to that now. And if you watch Ryan Pedon's Illinois State team, and, you know, Ryan Pedon and I have been friends for a lot of years, but Ryan was a speaker. Ryan drove all the way from Normal, Illinois to Lourdes College or Lourdes University to perform a clinic for District 7, and then drove back that night, and he wouldn't accept his stipend. He didn't take the check. So that's how much Northwest Ohio basketball means to Ryan. But you watch Ryan Pedon's Illinois State teams play, they take away ball reversal. They play defense like we did back in the 80s. And they do such a great job of, and this is the crazy thing, they back way off the ball handler, way off of them, but they pressure the heck out of the passing lanes. So they take dribble penetration away by backing off of the ball handler. But once that cat tries to penetrate and picks his dribble up, he's got nowhere to go. So they are so good at that defensively. And then the high-low actions they run out of all the, 1,016 gazillion set plays that Ryan has, the high-low actions they have are so good. And it's not just to the big kid, and his name slips my mind. They've got a great center. He's only 6'6", but man, he can play. He's a heck of a player. But man, he will get the Kinziger kid, Johnny Kinziger, their point guard. The Kinziger kid will pass the ball to the wing and float to the weak side of the floor and get sort of a pseudo back screen because everybody's on the midline, and then they reverse the thing, and this Kinziger kid stands on the block like he's just disinterested, and then that ball gets to the bingo spot, and they go high-low with this kid, and Johnny Kinziger is just a strong kid, and they go high-low with their point guard. It's great. It's just great to watch. And so what Ryan does is, with the Kinziger kid, they beat the people who are guarding him into submission. You're either going to guard me or you're going to foul me, until the point is, well, their coach needs you in the game, so how are you going to guard me? You're going to have to give something. And I love watching that, maybe more so than anything else. But I love the fact that Ryan Pedon guards hard, his kids guard hard, and offensively, I've watched almost every game of theirs this year, and you never know what in the heck they're going to do on the offensive end. Yeah, it's different every time, but 7 out of 10 times it ends up in a high-low, but you never know who's going to be in the high-low, and it's just fascinating to watch him pluck people apart. And I don't know how in the heck you would scout them. I find a lot of enjoyment watching them, and I'm biased because I think Ryan Pedon's a great guy. He's just when he was the associate head coach at University of Toledo, there hasn't been anybody in Northwest Ohio since I've been here who was better to high school coaches than Ryan Peden. He was just that guy. So I do have a soft spot in my heart for him, and I love seeing him have success. I love the fact that he took over a renegade program that just had problem after problem after problem, and he's gotten all those things straightened out, and he's got great kids playing for him. So I can't say enough great things about Ryan Peden in his Illinois State Redbirds. If I was still coaching, one of the things I did maybe 2 weeks after we got beaten postseason was my staff and I got together and I assigned all my assistants a different program to study. And that included me. And I would definitely have the assistant coach on my staff who had aspirations of being a head coach, someone who had a teaching license. I would say, I want you to study Ryan Peden's team for sure. I just think, an outlier, I've only seen him play 3 times. I love how Brian Earl, he was the head coach at Cornell, Big Red, and he took the William and Mary job, which is a brutal academic university. And I love how Brian, who was Pete Carell's point guard at Princeton, I love how he's created a Princeton offense that's not 4-around-1. It's more of a 1-3-1, and it's fascinating to watch. I really have enjoyed watching Brian. And Brian, when he was at Cornell, was a great contributor to our newsletter. And if you go back in the archives, and I don't remember which volume it was, it's all hand drawn. He just drew up what they did offensively at Cornell. And in the drawings, this is what is different than what we did at Princeton. And I think those are the things that are valuable when someone tells you this is why it's different. But I guess fetish should be the right word if I'm not talking about something gross. But I've got a fetish for these guys like Dave Nyland or Brian Earl or Kevin Broderick, these guys who can go into a institution that is just so hard academically, and have great success with those kids. I think that's special. So I didn't mean to ramble on that much, but those are the 5,000 teams I'm watching.
I don't know how you have the time to watch that much basketball.
Well, when I don't have a practice to plan or 5 game films to watch per night, it makes it a lot easier. And when you can't sleep because you're on 22 different medications, and like last night, man, I loved watching the end of the Kansas TCU game. I think for big time, huge marquee basketball, I do think Bill Self is one of the best X and O guys in the country. The full court set play he drew up with 3 seconds to go or 4 seconds to go, down 1 point against TCU last night. I recorded it on my phone. It'll be in the next newsletter, but I'm like, that's coaching. They ran a misdirection out of bounds play, got the ball to the middle, reversed it, and got a numerical advantage with just out of their misdirection from the people on the weak side running towards the ball. And it was like watching Bo Ryan or Dick Bennett or Bob Knight or Dr. Tom Davis. It was something you would expect from them out of a timeout in that type of situation. And I know I've said it before, just a couple seconds ago, but I think Bill Self might be the most underrated coach in marquee basketball, X and O's wise. So I also think Shaka Smart is outstanding. I think what Shaka Smart does at Marquette is outstanding. I think the way he gets those kids to sit down and dedicate themselves to playing that style of basketball is special, because you get the Marquette job or you get a big time college job, and you've got a ton of kids on your team, a majority of the kids on your team who have never heard the word no, or they've never been exposed to, this is my expectation for you, and if you can't get it done, you can't play, which is a real thing at that level. We all know that. And the way he can get them to do it is great. I love it. When Dick Bennett took the Wisconsin job, 95, I think, his whole roster was full of McDonald All-Americans, and he couldn't get him to do what he wanted. And by the time he went to the Final Four in 01, I think, there wasn't one McDonald's All-American on that roster. It was one of the most beautiful things I ever saw in college basketball. So all the teams at the Final Four sitting at a press conference, and the Wisconsin Badgers were last to be called upon. And so the other three teams, how many of you were McDonald's All-Americans? 5 kids on each team raised their hand. And when I got to the Badgers, Dick Bennett looked at his kids and he goes, how many of you are all conference in high school? And like 3 kids rose their hand. He goes, how many of you were 4.0s in high school? Every one of them raises their hand, and that's something that's gone, I think. And I think that's a main reason why I'm so driven with NAIA. I love watching Pat Knight's Marion teams play. I like watching Huntington play. I'm biased because I'm a Huntington grad. I like to say I played at Huntington, but I tried. I give it my best effort. I like watching Indiana Wesleyan play. I like watching Grace play. I like watching a lot of the smaller colleges play. I love watching. I can't get enough of watching, as I aforementioned, St. Thomas out of Florida. How they just run that full court motions just crazy. I love watching Christendom play out of Virginia. They've got 540 kids in the entire university or college. And the way Joe Dotson gets those kids to screen, because, he can't set ball screens. It's the academic rigors at that school are crazy. And every junior at Christendom, every junior has to go the first semester of their junior year to the Vatican. Every first semester, and their first semester of their junior year takes place at the Vatican. And so when they get back, the basketball players on that team have like 3 practices until they jump in, because they've already started playing games, obviously. And the way this guy gets these kids to screen off the ball at that level, and it's just, to me, that's the stuff that makes college basketball fun. Watching those guys who can't say, let's get the ball to the top of the floor, and Johnny, you go set a ball screen for him. That's the stuff I like. And I know I'm rambling, but that's what I like. Watch Christendom go to VMI, which was how I got familiar with them. I'm scrolling through ESPN Plus on a Friday evening, the week before Christmas break, trying to find a game I can actually watch. I see Christendom versus VMI. I've never heard of Christendom in my life, but I'm going to watch this. And the first 7-8 minutes of the game, I'm hooked. And VMI beat them, as they should. But Kristen, I'm sure the heck didn't make it easy. And I'm like, my goodness, how does this guy with those players compete the way they just competed against VMI? This guy certainly knows what he's doing. And that's why nobody likes me. Both of you guys are purists. Both of you are at a big disadvantage because you're in season. But man, find a way to record some Illinois State games. Find a way to reach out to Joe Dotson at Christendom. Definitely reach out to Kevin Broderick and Coach Nyland. Kevin Broderick's at Nazareth and Coach Nyland's at Penn State Behrend. And Matt, I mean, if I put you and Kevin Nyland in the same room, you guys might be there for a month. I mean, they almost beat Buffalo. And he's the head coach at engineering school. And the way they spread the floor in their spread blocker mover, that old archaic 4-out, 1-in, old spread blocker mover, which nobody runs anymore. Nobody. I haven't seen anybody run it. I thought I was the last, but watching Kevin Nyland's team at Behrend, it's just beautiful. And the other guy you guys need to definitely keep an eye on and study hard is Mike McDonald at Damon University in Buffalo, New York. He's Division II, and they're he's undefeated thus far this season. They didn't lose a regular season game last year, and academically, that's an impossible school academically. It's tough to get into, and the way he gets those kids to play, Mike McDonald was John Beeline's assistant at two different universities, so they still run that two-guard Jim Beeline offense, and they run it to perfection. So those would definitely be people I would study. I was never a head coach at a powerhouse, so when I studied programs, I had to study teams who I could relate with. I know I've told Ryan this 100 times. I might have told you this, Matt. One in the 2000 IBCA clinic, Indiana Basketball Coaches Association clinic, the new coach at North Carolina was the headliner. And his opening statement to the packed house was, if you don't have a four-man who's at least 6'9", who can shoot 40% from the three-point line, this offense isn't for you. And 70% of the population left and went to Hooters. So, that whatever he had to offer, I'm sure was good, but it didn't relate with what I needed. So I always like to watch people who I could relate with. I think Charlie Ernst at Findlay does a great job. I think he's one of the most underrated coaches in America. Gosh, do they guard. I mean, they just flat guard, and offensively, their sets are great. I've heard a lot of good things about Defiance College's coach. I haven't been able to see them play yet. I've heard a lot of good things about them. Of course, Greg Campy at Oakland's amazing. He does a great job. The other guy I skipped over that on my list. The other guy who I would study hard, and this would be the one I would take if I was coaching a team and I delegated other programs for people, my assistants to study. Coach Riley, Wazoo, Washington State, who just came, this is his first year there. He was at Eastern Washington for a handful of years before going to Wazoo. They don't set any on-ball screens. They are 4-out, 1-in motion, and everything's off the ball screening. And it's like watching a team from 1980 play. And I would study him. He's another one who we had as assistant on a Zoom clinic on Basketball Nexus. Predicates their entire scouting report on these are the people we can score on the block for blocks. And the thing he does that I love more than even that is how he'll send a kid off of a pin down screen vertically to the nail hole. And they'll get this kid the ball on the nail hole, and then they flatten out in the 1-4 low. And he's got a different repertoire of athletes at Wazoo than he did at Eastern Washington. He's I think had to loosen the reins up to keep kids, at the major big time marquee level. I just from watching, it looks like he has had to keep kids. But man, when he was at Eastern Washington, they would back screen a kid to the block or send a kid vertically off a pin down screen to the nail hole and then flatten out and just beat people into submission. He's one of the best in the game tactically, X and O's wise. But again, they watch hours and hours and hours of film, and they find out who can't guard sliding to their left, per se. And they just exploit the heck out of them. The other thing that he does that I love, and Matt, you run that Tony Bennett blocker mover where one of their players will pass the ball and then come off of that flare. And the kid who is supposed to cut off the flare screens for the screener. And that basically is a back screen. And Bob Punter, who was Robbie Hummel's coach at Valparaiso High School, that was his thing. They would flare but screen for the flare screener. And then you've got a kid going to the basket, and the kid screening for the flare screener was always one of their best shooters. So now the defense is in a huge predicament. So I know I've just insulted both of your IQs. You might not ever recover from it, and I apologize. You deserved better. And as Ryan can tell you, Matt, the worst thing to do is to get a retired basketball coach on a Zoom talking basketball. It's a lose-lose proposition. I would equate it to this. As someone who's taught elementary PE for the last 19 years, and I was prior to that always high school, as an elementary PE teacher, I never see another adult. So when an adult makes a mistake of coming into the gym, they get both ears chewed off. Because I don't have to talk about Hello Kitty or, whatever. Oh, Matt Painter. I think Paints does a great job. I love watching Purdue. I'm biased. I like to say I played against Matt in high school. It wasn't that. Matt played, and I watched him go around me. I know what the bottom of Matt Painter's shoes look like. One of the best high school players I ever saw. But I think his teams offensively do great things. And I love the fact that Braden Smith got one Division I offer to Purdue. And I do think the Big Ten is on its way to being the Big Ten again. And I still don't consider Oregon or, I'm not talking about those guys out west. DeVries at IU is bringing IU back. I love Nico at Minnesota. I did like Fran McCaffrey. I mean, Fran McCaffrey's teams couldn't guard me, but I loved watching them play offense. I think the Big Ten's on its way up. If you ask me who was the head coach at Oregon, I'm taking a bullet. I don't know. But I do think the Big Ten's back on its way to being the Big Ten again. In the MAC, we didn't talk about BGSU. I love how Todd Simon's kids guard. BGSU went to K-State and beat them, which screws the MAC tremendously because now the Big 12 is never going to invite a MAC team back. The Redbirds at Miami, I love watching them. Travis Steele has a great team. Kowalczyk's got a good team. Coach Bowles at OU, his sets are amazing. He does a great job with his set plays. Great teacher of set plays. Of course, Coach Gross at Akron's outstanding. I haven't seen University of Northern Ohio. I haven't seen them the last couple of years. I know they've got a new coach. I haven't seen them. I'd like to. My old assistant coach at Maumee is now the head men's coach at Muskegum University, and we saw them play at Heidelberg a couple weeks ago, and we're going to watch them at Ohio Northern on Saturday. His name's Nate Wally, going from 2 wins his first year to conference coach of the year in year 3. And this year they've lost 1 game. They lost a tough one to Mount Union. But man, if you like watching just bone breaking off the ball screening, and they play the heck out of your Packline, Matt. I mean, play the heck out of it. He's doing a great job. He didn't learn any of that from me, but he is doing a great job. So that would be another program. The thing about him that's amazing is most of those coaches who go through a year where they don't win many games, the next year the roster has a lot of different names. And he stuck with those kids and turned them into winners. So I think that's notable. But anyway, again, getting me talking about this stuff is a terrible mistake. I hope your IQs regurgitate and come back. You might have to drink a lot of water tonight. I appreciate you guys coming on. It's been a good show.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. It's been fun.
Yeah, Ryan, I almost forgot. Tell us your leadership tip for the week.
Well, I'm glad Matt stayed on because hopefully he doesn't get too big of a head because I'm gonna boost his self-esteem a little bit. Mine is inspire your kids to greatness. Okay. And obviously greatness looks different for every athlete. Some kids, greatness means that they've just earned playing time at the varsity level. Some kids greatness, is scoring 1,000 points. But I think when you can inspire them to reach or even exceed some of the things that they even think they can do, I think is pretty awesome. And I'm going to go back to the Archwold game, and I can't remember if this was between the fourth quarter and overtime, or if it was near the end of overtime. But I can tell you, my wife and I've talked to her about this 2 or 3 times, but in the last 3 games, we've struggled with leads in the fourth quarter. And as Matt said, we've got some young guards. But I like this just struck me, and obviously we were in the heat of the moment. And so I had to kind of just play it off until after the game, when I had my 45-minute drive home. But Matt looked at one of our guards and he said, "You're my guy. You can do it. And you're my point guard. I'm not giving up on you." And looked right at the kid. And I as I was driving home, I just thought that it's just awesome. Like I don't know if he understands this. I don't know if this kid understands right now how special that is or how meaningful that is for him. But to have a coach look at you in the heat of the moment and say, "I believe in you. You can do this." It's just awesome. So that's my tidbit.
That's good stuff. That is not only something that is crucial in athletics, but also in the classroom. Matt, what you said to that kid will never forget that, ever. That'll be when you're on your deathbed and your life flashes in front of your face. That'll be one of the things that young man remembers, and that's priceless, absolutely priceless. And we need more people like you saying more things like that to young kids, because we have an inundation now in coaching and also in the classroom of adults who are really good at telling kids what they're not good at, but terrible at telling them how to fix it. But looking at a kid and saying, "You're my guy," and that's not going to change, is priceless. thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
That's priceless.
Not only important for that kid, but also for his teammates to hear that as well. Everybody else to know. Because we did make some changes and move some guys around, but again, I thought it important to not only that he knows, but his teammates know in the heat of the battle that he's our guy and we're sticking with him.
Yes. Most impressive, Matt. Most impressive. It doesn't surprise me. You know how I felt about both of you for a lot of years. And I'd like to say that surprises me that you would say that, but I'd be lying to you. I would expect nothing less. That is a great, great thing to say, especially when the kid knows you mean it. Because Lord knows our kids hear so much fluff now. To give you an example, one of my buddies contacted me today before school started, and he's way out west where AAU is a lot more prevalent than actually high school basketball. And this young player got offered from a mid-major Division I university. Four-eyed, got offered. And this kid's AAU coach said, no, you're better than that. And so the kid turned the scholarship offer down. And over the next 6 games in high school basketball, the kid went into a slump. And now this kid has no offers, none. So my point being, and I know I don't need to explain this point to you two, but the point being is that kid got terrible adult advice. Terrible. So my leadership tip for this week is don't make promises you can't keep. As a 30-year veteran in the classroom, and I coached basketball for 27 years, I got to be around a lot of different administrators in the 9 different districts I coached and taught in. I heard a lot of people who were in charge of me make promises that were impossible to keep. And not just to me, but to the entire teaching faculty or coaching staff, whether it be an AD or a principal or superintendent. And when you do that, you've lost all credibility with the people who work for you. When you make promises that you can't keep, nothing good comes from that. Because now when you promise something, it means nothing. It's wash rags. It's useless. It's not rare air. It's the same air everybody breathes. And that's one of the biggest tips I can give anybody who watches this podcast who aspires to not only be a head coach or be a teacher or professional in any circumstance. Don't make promises you can't keep. If you promise something to people who are hanging on every word you say and it doesn't come to fruition, you've lost a lot of credibility. And you're a lot better off going back to the biblical stance of my yes means yes, my no means no. And if you say, I promise this is going to happen and it doesn't, everyone's going to question what you say from here on out. That's something that I don't think you can fix necessarily. I think people can apologize for it, what does mean something. And of course, things happen that we can't control. So my point is, if you're going to tell someone you're going to do something, make sure you can do it and make it happen no matter what. So that's my 2 cents for the leadership capacity of this podcast. What about you, Matt? You got a leadership? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I would say the best piece of advice from a leadership standpoint is be who you are. You got to be genuine and be who you are. And I think that's one thing that I've learned throughout my career is I'm a pretty intense coach. If you've watched our teams play, and some people think I'm an absolute lunatic on the sidelines, which has mellowed a little bit with age. But I tried from time to time to be the nice guy, tone it down in practice, and they see right through it. It's phony. So be who you are, be genuine, and continue to be who you are.
I love it. I know I got in a healthy argument with another professional. I've never been an advocate of authentic leadership. And what I mean by that is, if you're I'm not saying you, I'm speaking generalities. If you're a moron, it's okay. Just do what morons do. But if you're a moron who tries to be a Rhodes Scholar, it ain't going to work. So, piggybacking off what you're saying, and both of you were probably up for Rhodes Scholarships. I was not. But I know Ryan was at Huntington.
Yeah, I was a finalist.
Absolutely. I remember that. I wrote a letter of recommendation and you said, no, I don't need it. Thank you. Thank you, though, for caring. Well, guys, this has been great. Thank you for your time. I wish you the best as you plow through the remainder of the season. And I know for a fact your kids are going to get nothing but better. And that's been a trademark of both of your programs, and now a unified program is Edon Bombers. So I'm looking forward. My wife and I were talking earlier during dinner. We're going to make the drive out. We want to go to an Edon game at Edon. We're going to drive out, and I'll let you know, Ryan, when we go, and Matt, and you know, you two guys are two of the last bastions of people doing this job the way it should be done. So I don't have words to say how much I appreciate that. If I did, they wouldn't matter. But just let it be known that there are still people out there who really appreciate what you guys do and how you do it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you for your time, and I will see you soon.